What is up, weather enthusiasts? I'm your host, Pat's Path Predictor. Let's get right into the weather. All right, so here's the situation we have for you, ladies and gentlemen. Yesterday and last night, I was actually talking to Weather Kingdom, and he wanted me to present some parameters that we haven't really talked about just yet, and he wanted me to share with you some information that he relayed to me. We are also going to have him on for an interview tomorrow, so be sure you stay tuned for that. And also, just to make my day, and because he's helping us out on the channel, please go ahead and go to subscribe to him. His link will be the first link in the description down below. It'll also be in the end screen at the end of this video. So if you guys could really do that, I would really appreciate that. But with that being said, we're going to go ahead and dive right into the video right here. So we're going to go ahead and spend like the first half of the video. We're going to kind of speed up what we normally do, and then we're going to talk about some of the conditions that Weather Kingdom presented me with yesterday and last night, and we're going to go somewhat in depth with those in today's video. But before we do that, let's go ahead and start with the NHC, as we always do, and this is the area of interest, which is Invest 95E, so let's go ahead and take a quick look at this. Showers and thunderstorms associated with an area of low pressure located a few hundred miles south of the coast of Guatemala, remain disorganized. Environmental conditions appear conducive for gradual development of the system during the next few days, and a tropical depression or storm is likely to form by late this weekend while the system moves slowly west-northwestward off the coast of southern Mexico. 40% chance in the next 48 hours, so that has really increased, and now we have an 80% chance of formation in the next 7 days. So models are starting to pick up on this. We're going to want to pay attention to this going forward. And taking a quick look at satellite imagery, this is Invest 95E over here where my cursor is, hovering just off the coast of Guatemala and Mexico over here. So that is something we're going to want to pay attention to. Let's go ahead and speed run through the models very quickly just to kind of show you what's potentially going on with this. Let's go ahead and start with the European. This system is organizing, developing, and slowly heading towards the Mexican coast right here. It's moving parallel to that, actually, and then you're kind of starting to see how this is going. The European actually doesn't really have that much development until it moves west of Mexico. Pressure of 1,002 millibars is a tropical storm before weakening and moving towards Baja California, and that's the kind of the last we will see of that. Moving on to the GFS, we're going to go ahead and show you the 0Z and the 12Z just to compare and contrast right here, just to kind of give all the information. So the 0Z GFS, is having the system organizing and developing, really ramping up in intensity. 980 millibar system as it hugs the Oaxaca and Guerrero coast right there, similar to where Hurricane Eric made landfall. Gets down to a 973 millibar hurricane before weakening due to cooler waters, wind shear, and all of that as it moves off and dissipates, and that's the last we'll hear of that. Looking at the 12Z very quickly, similar situation. This system starts to organize and develop, intensifies pretty quickly. 977 millibar system off the Guerrero coast over there, and then it moves off, starts to weaken due to cooler waters, and that's the last we will see of that. Looking at the Canadian run very quickly, this system is organizing, developing, starting to move off the Oaxaca and Guerrero coast. It actually strengthens to a tropical storm just off of those coasts. Then it becomes a hurricane as it approaches as it approaches the Eastern Pacific, and it kind of starts to move out to sea. Then it starts to weaken and dissipate to cooler waters, and that's the CMC's run with this very quickly. Last run we will show you is the Icon run. And the system's organizing and developing, starting to move over a little bit more. It's kind of taking its time organizing, but it does get down to hurricane strength as it approaches the Oaxaca and Guerrero coasts over there. 970 millibar system. The Icon is the most aggressive out of the runs right here, so you're going to want to pay attention to that. And then it starts to weaken, starts to dissipate, and that's pretty much what we'll see from that as it moves into cooler waters. So that's the situation that we have with the model runs. And like I said, we're going to kind of speed run through some of this stuff so we can get to more of the juicy stuff and talk about what I really want to get to, and that is the Atlantic. So let's go ahead and start talking about the conditions that we are seeing right now across much of the Atlantic. So let's go ahead and start pretty simply. Here's our sea surface temperatures right here. This has really become very interesting to pay attention to, and I was talking to Weather Kingdom about this last night as we're continuing to see these returns start to kick in. We noticed earlier this huge area along the Atlantic Basin. We noticed over there that we are seeing a really big increase, a really large turn up in the sea surface temperatures right there. And you're also starting to notice too is you're noticing that the kind of the Gulf Stream, which is this area of warm water right here and kind of slithers through here, is starting to connect more so with the warming water temperatures. At least we're starting to see similar temperature returns just south of the Gulf Stream right here. It's not one isolated area of warm water anymore. It's now a much larger area of warm water, especially as this region right here starts to warm up to 26 degrees Celsius and similar areas. And as we continue to see warmer and warmer and warmer waters approach the subtropics, that is a very concerning sign for me to look at as a forecaster. Also, the Gulf region is very interesting as well. This is 31 degrees Celsius, ladies and gentlemen. We have cracked 31 degrees Celsius just off the coast of Louisiana and Mississippi right here. That is the first time we have seen it on the Pat's Path Predictor channel. I saw it a little bit last night as I was talking with Weather Kingdom about it, but we're finally seeing these returns right here, and that is a very concerning sign going forward, particularly with just how much the Gulf has warmed up, and considering yesterday in that video, we surpassed the global warmth record for warmest temperatures on that day in the Gulf. In fact, we've actually, I think, did that for the second day in a row. If we look at the climate reanalyzer, taking a quick look at this, yes, this is the second day in a row that we have now, at least in this day of history, breached the now have at least we broke the record, for warmest sea surface temperatures in the Gulf region right here. So that's something to pay attention to. This is eclipse 2010s for the next few days. We're going to have to see how this will pan out and how it'll kind of merge with the 2023 and 2024 water temps. So you're going to want to pay attention to that and see how those trends will go over the next few days. But by and large, this is a very concerning sign for me to take a look at right here. You're looking at these anomalies right here as well. You're looking at this is well above average right here. You're seeing those sea surface temperatures really turning up right there across the region, and that's something to pay attention to. Another area I am concerned about is the main development region, and we will get more into that later in the video, but the main development region over here is really starting to warm up as well. You're noticing 29 isolated areas, 29 degrees Celsius right here. The water temperature over there is pretty much a given. It's a constant at this point of if it's warm enough. Now the question we are asking is how warm is it, and how is the OHC kind of counteracting, and how is it kind of supplementing that? And we can kind of give you that answer right here in the OHC, taking a quick gander at this right here. The ocean heat constant, this is yesterday's map. Taking a quick look at today's map, we're still continuing to see that expansive area of OHC. We're seeing more and more expansion to the north in the main development region. We're seeing more and more ocean heat content starting to turn up in parts of the northwestern Caribbean. It seems that, at least in the loop current, they have laid off just temporarily for a little bit, but do not expect that to last for very long, as we're continuing to see the OHC really surge in the Gulf region. Also, we're noticing a surge in the loop current as well, and that is very concerning for me to take a look at as well. We're looking at almost 100 OHC if you take a look at it off the coast of South Carolina and North Carolina right there. That is pretty concerning to look at. And look at how far north this OHC is, too, compared to what we were at last year. This is much further to the north, supplemented by those warming temperatures that are really starting to turn up and really starting to heat up. And what I will say is, this is kind of going to be the precursor, because July, that's when you're going to start seeing the biggest OHC increase across the entire Atlantic region. At least this year, from what I've seen with charts and how the water temperatures have been acting. You're going to see a pretty big increase in the Gulf altogether. You've already seen a big increase in itself, but you're going to see it continue in the Gulf region. You're going to start seeing it really start to turn up in the northwestern Caribbean Sea. You also saw that last year. We can go ahead now and pull up the archives just to show you this. Let's go ahead and jump to July 1st of 2024 just to kind of show you this. This is where we were at. This is June 1st. My apologies. Let's go ahead and go to July of 2020. Actually, this is June 1st right here. June, we had the water temperatures and the SSTs really starting to turn up across much of the region. If we go ahead and go to July of 2024, taking a quick look at that, you're already pretty piping hot right here. I believe the date is wrong on this. So let's go ahead and go to July 1st right here. Yeah, you were noticing a lot of the SSTs were really starting to turn up in much of the Caribbean and in parts of the main development region as well. But as we got to July 31st, right here, look at this. 175, 175, 175. We saw a lot of OHC everywhere. It expanded greatly in that month. Taking a look at it back from the first, look at the subtropics too. We went from around 30 degrees north at the beginning of the month to almost over 40 degrees north of 50 OHC by the end of it, as the Gulf Stream and the loop current really started to turn up over there. So that is also something you're going to want to pay attention to. And you may look at this. This is June 25th right now. We could see a similar situation happening again throughout the month of July as the SSTs start to warm up more and those water temperatures get deeper and deeper and deeper down into the ocean. So that's a factor to pay attention to. Okay, so as I was recording this video, Tropical Tidbits decided to go down. Dr. Levi Cowan, you might need to fix some things with that, unless it's like one of those things where it lasts like 30 minutes to an hour and I have to wait. But just for the sake of this video, we're going to skip some of the other parameters I wanted to show you because we still have a little bit of time, and I want to go ahead and really get into some of the stuff that Weather Kingdom was showing me. He was going, Patrick, you need to take a look at this. And we're going to go ahead and do that. So essentially, one thing we have not covered very much on this channel this year is the Madden-Julian oscillation. It's essentially an oscillation which lasts anywhere between 40 and 90 days. And in layman's terms, if the Madden-Julian oscillation is over a certain region of the world, then tropical development is a lot more likely, essentially. So if the MJO is over the Atlantic, that makes it a lot more favorable for tropical development. Why does it do that? Because it provides a lot more moisture, provides a lot more divergence, and it provides a lot more. Just kind of things that better ingredients for tropical development to take place. So essentially, the stuff Weather Kingdom wanted to show me, he wanted to show me this, wanted me to show this graphic right here, which is kind of a model as to where the MJO was and what we're expecting over the next little while. So, taking a look at it right now, the Madden-Julian oscillation is currently in its passive phase. It's currently in its inactive phase, rather, and it's currently situated right here over I believe, over the maritime continent. However, as we've continued to see with the spaghetti plot runs, it does look like that the MJO does become more favorable around early to mid-July across parts of the Atlantic. And if that holds, and there is every reason to think that it does, that could mean that that's our next area for development. We also took a look at this chart right here as well. This is kind of to give you an idea as to what the MJO is going to do and kind of an idea as to how things will ultimately pan out. So this is on your left. This is the observed your observed MJO favorable and unfavorable environment. On your right is the future MJO favorable and unfavorable environment. So taking a look at this, here's our situation that we have right here. Starting for this week, the next 10 days, the projected pattern we're noticing, mostly favorable over parts of the Western Pacific right here, generally something to pay attention to. And then around the 4th to the 13th is when the MJO starts to become more favorable for Africa and the Atlantic. You're starting to notice a little bit of a blip over here off the coast, off the Gold Coast and off the Ivory Coast over here in Africa. Then from the 14th to the 23rd, we have a relatively strong signal across much of the main development region, across parts of the Atlantic Basin to pay attention to. So those are all factors that you're going to want to keep a very close eye on. And then from the 24th to the 2nd, you still have that signal over there. What does this essentially mean? Well, that, ladies and gentlemen, looks like that's going to be our next area, at least our next time frame, rather, of tropical development, our next favorable time for tropical development. So essentially, what we're looking at, and we've been noticing this with the wind shear patterns and the moisture, is starting around in the next few days, the wind shear pattern becomes a lot less bulky and it becomes a lot more fluctuative, and it becomes a lot more more up and down, up and down. The wind shear starts to collapse more, then it starts to resurge more, then it starts to collapse again. That's pretty much your typical July wind shear pattern. But with the moisture aspect of it, what we were noticing too was a moisture surge across parts of the region. If tropical tidbits can actually get its act together, it's not. We'll talk about it later, but ultimately, the situation that we're noticing with the moisture is basically we're going to have a pretty big moisture surge across parts of the Atlantic, parts of the main development region, especially with the precipitable water anomalies we've been noticing. They really start to turn up around July 3rd or 4th across much of the main development region. Yes, there's still going to be Sahara air, there's still going to be Sahara dust to pay attention to. But what we're noticing in the tropics, we're noticing with the monsoon season in the Sahel region starting to turn up, what we're noticing with these tropical waves over here coming off the coast of Africa, and what we're noticing as well with the more active MJO pattern across much of the Atlantic coming up, what we're noticing with this situation is we're noticing we are starting to kind of figure out when the next timetable would be for tropical development. And I'll go ahead and quickly pull up another chart right here as well. This is kind of another chart to kind of take a look at kind of the anomalies I'm paying attention to it. This is more so your divergence convergence pattern right here. So what are we looking at right here? At least for right now, things are relatively kind of stable / unfavorable for parts of June and into a little bit of early July. But as you start to get to around the 14th of July, according to this chart right here, you're starting to notice more divergence. Number one, in the Caribbean Sea, you're starting to notice more of that and less convergence. And you're noticing starting around the 19th and the 24th and the 29th, you're noticing that divergence increase across much of the Atlantic. Essentially, what you're looking for here is divergence is aloft means convergence below. So if the air parcel converges below and is forced to rise at the surface, that generates clouds once it's cooled up. And then once it diverges aloft, that kind of helps speeds up the process of that. Where if it was converging aloft, it would be sinking down. So divergence aloft means rising motion, which is conducive for convection, and convergence aloft is sinking motion, which is not favorable for convection. That's a process we call that's subsidence right there, as we call in the meteorology program, as we call in the meteorology world as well. So that's kind of what we're looking at right here. And I do believe starting in early July, you're going to want to pay attention to these factors as they really start to turn up and as they really start to ramp up as well. However, we're not going to really take a look at this at the surface. We're going to go more in depth with this tomorrow. That is why we are having Weather Kingdom on for an interview tomorrow. So be sure you do not miss that. We are going to have him come on. We're going to have him talk about the MJO, some of the conditions and all that stuff. And we're going to go more in depth with these charts and explain to you properly what these mean and what this potentially means for tropical development. So be sure you stay tuned for that. One last time, be sure to go ahead and subscribe to Weather Kingdom. His link is the first link in the description down below. Let's see if we can get him up to like 500 subscribers by the end of this 2-video quote-unquote series that we're doing here on the Pat's Path Predictor channel. I think he'd really appreciate that. And if he gets up to 500 subs and over a good amount of watch time as well, he can monetize his videos, and I'm definitely planning on donating his first stream, so we'll hopefully get to do that. But stay tuned for that. Be sure to like the video, subscribe to the channel if you are new. The goal, as always, is to get more people engaged with weather. If you want to help out, hang out, or you want to ask us some questions, be sure to join the Storms United Discord server. The link to that is in the end screen. And with that being said, have a wonderful day, guys. Stay safe. Still waiting. Still waiting.